How does our society and culture today compare to the society and culture of the ancient Israel and the surrounding nations? Is there a significant difference in our society today? Well, we're exploring the ancient book of Deuteronomy to obtain helpful guidelines to aid us in our daily living. In this lesson, we continue our look at what Deuteronomy has to say about the covenant or agreement God made with the Israelites and what society was like and how our society compares today. In terms of God's agreement or covenant with the Israelites, our key text is found in Genesis 17:7, and it says, "And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you in their generation for an everlasting covenant to be God to you and your descendants after you." The title of this lesson is His Special People. If whole empires have come and gone with only ruins remaining, what do we know about the nations that lived in the same area as Israel? Not much. We really don't know what the ancient world was like at that time in which Israel was wandering in the wilderness. But based on the Bible, we do know these people were paganistic, in that paganism is characterized as belief in or worship of many gods. Many of their practices were degrading in that they offered human sacrifices that even included the sacrifice of children. Imagine, if you will, how degrading and evil this religious culture must have been, that it would offer their own children as sacrifices and do it in the name of some God. But wait a minute. How often does our society today do the same? Perhaps not in the name of religion, but in the name of the God of wealth, selfishness, fame, fortune, greed. We sacrifice humans. We even sacrifice our children as well. Children are ignored and neglected. Kids are left alone to fend for themselves. Many kids are raising themselves. Some are homeless. Others go to bed at night without nothing to eat. Many are abused and mistreated by their own parents. It's no wonder, over and over, all through the history of ancient Israel, the Lord had warned his people against following the practices of the nations around them. Deuteronomy 18:9, it says, "When you come into the land which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominations of those nations." God had called out the ancient nations of Israel for a special purpose. By having entered into the covenant with God, they were to be a special people. They were to be a witness to the world of the God who created the heavens and the earth, the one and only true God. The verses in Deuteronomy 26:16-19 sums up how the covenant relationship between God and Israel was to be. It establishes how their faithfulness to the covenant was to be manifested and what kind of people they were to become. Deuteronomy 26:16-19 says, "This day the Lord your God commands you to observe these statutes and judgments. Therefore, you shall be careful to observe them with all your heart and with all your soul. Today you have proclaimed the Lord to be your God, and that you will walk in his ways and keep his statutes, his commandments, and his judgments, and that you will obey his voice. Also today, the Lord has proclaimed you to be his special people, just as he promised you that you should keep all his commandments, and that he will set you high above all nations which he has made, in praise, in name, in honor, and that you be a holy people to the Lord your God, just as he has spoken. The instructions given to the Israelites then can be taken and applied to us today. As a people proclaiming to worship God, the creator of the universe, we should be careful not to take on the harmful culture or societal practices pervading our world today. It is interesting that Moses begins these 4 verses with the word this day, as in right now. Moses is saying again, God commands you to do these things. He repeats this same idea in verse 17. It says, today you have proclaimed the Lord to be your God, and that you will walk in his ways and keep his statutes, his commandments, and his judgments, and that you will obey his voice. Moses has been telling them continuously to do these things. It seems as if he is telling them they need to commit at this very moment again to be faithful, holy, and a special people. Their agreement to faithfulness and obedience to God is the central reason for their existence as the covenant nation. In fact, they were the only people as a nation who knew the true God and knew the truth about this God and how he wanted people to live. So they not only had present truth, but they were the symbol of that truth until Jesus, the truth himself, was to come. For Jesus is the ultimate truth. For Jesus said to them, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. The idea of a covenantal relationship with God is imagery to help the Israelites understand the type of relationship they should have with God. Deuteronomy uses other types of imagery as well. What were they? Find out in part 5, Other Images.